Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Abbas Okiola. I am the founder and the CEO of Nicam Consulting. And today I'm going to be talking to you about what Nicam Consulting does as an organization, how we plan to provide independent project controls and ensure that projects are delivered on time and under budget, ultimately driving infrastructure delivery. So as an organization, we aim to provide services for public agencies, which, we all know have problem with, project delivery in terms of contract schedule. So most times contractors are the ones that develop their own schedule for their project. And sometimes they tend to be overly optimistic or incomplete. Oversight provided by the owners is usually done through manual reviews, and there's sometimes limited internal staffing to conduct this oversight, making the oversight process very slow and not as effective as it should be. So because of all these reasons, because of the manual review process, the limited internal staffing, project risks are often identified too late, most times after they must have materialized, and this has resulted into projects being delivered later than they should be, and ultimately driving up the cost of projects. So these are the issues that most project companies typically encounter. And as a result of this, many infrastructure projects experience 10 to 30% schedule delay and significant cost overrun. So this challenge creates the need for a more reliable and independent approach to ensure that there is schedule oversight. And this is where Nicam Consulting, this is where we come in. So the solution that we are proposing, our value proposition, is to provide independent schedule intelligence for infrastructure projects using normal scheduling tools like Microsoft Project, Oracle Primavera P6, Oracle Primavera Cloud. We aim to analyze project schedule even before they are developed, right from the procurement phase where the contract documents are being drafted. We are identifying this risk early. We are providing information to the project team, and ultimately we are allowing agency to detect potential delay, cost overrun, and potential possibilities of dispute before escalation occur. So the ultimate goal here is to help project owners make better decisions and keep projects on schedule and within budget. So I'm going to be talking to you about how Nicam approach works in practice. So here, pretty simple, pretty safe, straightforward. Our approach uses a four-step process to help projects stay on track. The first one is we collect the project data, such as the schedule, the contract documents, every information that we could gather, we collect that. We analyze that using tools like Primavera P6, Risk Analyzer, and the likes. We extract end value management metrics like the Cost Performance Index, the Schedule Performance Index, SPI, CPI, TCPI, and the likes. And we look at the procurement logs and all of that to be able to track items that have long lead time or short lead time. So at the end of doing all of this, we analyze the schedule, we look at cost, and we look at trends, and we are able to forecast delay and cost overrun early using our inbuilt system. So at the end of the day, we come up with the risk and we come up with mitigating options and ways to optimize the schedule and provide information to the project team to support them as best as we can, such that they're able to finish all their projects on time and on budget. So this process will enable project owners to detect risk early and improve overall project performance. So like I mentioned earlier, our approach is simple: collect the data, assess the risk, provide early warnings, and recommend proactive actions. So who are the customers that we aim to serve? We are looking at three key customer groups in the infrastructure sector at this point in time. The first one is the public agencies, such as the Department of Transportation, Transportations Authority, whose primary goal is to deliver projects on time and within budget and with reliable contractor schedules. So organizations like the Maryland Department of Transportation, the Washington Metropolitan Area Transportation Authority. So those are some of the customer personas that we have. The second categories are owner representative and project executives. So owner representatives and project executives who are responsible for maintaining schedule control and providing accurate reporting to stakeholders. So they have the obligation to ensure that they are reporting back to their stakeholders and they're giving them an estimate on the status of the project. So that is our second group of customer personnel. The last group are engineering consulting firms and contractors. This particular group came about as a function of pivoting that we recognized later on as the project business proposal was being, as the business proposal was being developed. So we recognize that, there are some challenges that will happen in the future, and we could also leverage the opportunity of existing engineering consulting firms like AECOM, HNTB, WSP to provide augmentation staffing to their existing project control needs. Ultimately, the aim is for them to ensure that any contract that they have with their client are done, and we could support them in that process, coming in from the angle of project control and project scheduling. So across these three groups, the common challenge is that there's poor schedule visibility, there's unreliable contractor schedule, and there's difficulty in identifying risk. So this is where Nicam addresses these challenges. So taking a look at the market size in total, when you look at the project control industry at large, you could see that there's a total addressable market, TAM, of about 3 to 5 billion annually on multiple high dollar value infrastructure projects. And these are projects that are in control and schedule intelligence services across the United States at large. From this $3 to $5 billion total addressable market, we could extract a serviceable available market of about $800 million to $1.5 billion. And this is representing public agencies, infrastructure owners that require independent schedule validation and risk analysis. Then from that, Nicam now could look at the serviceable obtainable market, the amount of market that we can realistically capture out of this SAM. And from that, we have about $500,000 to about $5 million that we could realistically capture within the next 5 years. And this is based on our estimate of regional expansion, repeat consulting engagement with our different customer personnel and our different clients. And ultimately, this shows that Nicam is targeting a large and growing market with a realistic plan for early revenue growth. So in the next slide, I'll be showing you how Nicam will be generating the revenue within this market. So here, this is our business model, whereby I've mentioned that we'll be helping infrastructure owners identify risk early and reduce cost delay and improve project decision making through independent schedule intelligence. Our primary revenue is going to come from project-based advisory services. So we are going to be providing advisory services to our clients, and these advisory services will include schedule validation and, most importantly, risk analysis. So depending on the size of the project and the dollar value of the project, typical engagement range will be between $15,000 to up to $150,000 per project. And based on this, we can also offer retainer-based services where agencies receive continuous schedule oversight across the capital programs that they have, which might include multiple projects. So using this model over time, Nicam plans to scale through subscription-based tools, also scale through developing analytical dashboard, and of course, offering training programs for their in-house staffs, executives, and project managers. And through all these three metrics, we are hoping that we are confident that we'll be creating recurring revenue. So our aim on how we plan to obtain the market, our go-to-market strategy, is to target state DOTs, transportation authorities, public infrastructure, all of this organization that manages large capital programs. We will begin by leveraging existing professional relationships that we've developed over the years as individual performers, as individuals, or as members of our team, and also industry network through conferences, seminars, and all of that, and also through publicly advertised contracts. Ultimately, these are the three ways that we aim to use to acquire our customers, leveraging the relationship, building industry networks, and applying for industry publicly advertised contracts. So once initial projects are delivered successfully, which we believe is going to be our major hurdle, getting the first few projects, once we're able to cross that hurdle, we can build on that momentum through repeat work, referrals within the same agency, and over time, Nicam plan to scale regionally and eventually nationally across different states in the United States. And using a standardized schedule intelligence framework, we plan to have a standard that we can apply to multiple projects across different states in the United States. So this approach will allow Nicam to start with trusted relationship, allow us to demonstrate value, and expand across infrastructure programs. So with every organization, of course, we have competitors. And in our case, as Nicam, we are operating in the market with three main types of competitors. The first one are large engineering and consulting firms, such as AECOM, WSP, Jacobs. All of these companies provide full program management, but the issue with them is they are often expensive and slower to mobilize. So that's where we come in. We are going to be starting as a smaller company with more urgency, and we can help address our clients' needs on a more urgent basis. Secondly, our second competitors are going to be project controls in consultants, so individual consultants who provide scheduling support, but oftentimes they are often embedded with the contractor rather than acting independently or acting on behalf of the owner. So that is a gap there that we aim to explore. Also, the third one are internal agency staff. So, most organizations like the Maryland Department of Transportation, WAMARA, they have their own internal consulting teams. So, but this staff typically relies on schedule reviews, and they have limited capacity and they rely heavily on contractor schedule. So Nicam positioning is different. We are different because we provide independent, specialized schedule intelligence that is focused on early risk detection and faster decision support. So we are more on ground, we are more involved, and we are more responsive than all these other three competitors that are currently working in the market. Ultimately, this positions Nicam to develop and deliver more focused and responsive schedule oversight for infrastructure projects. So after we started our initial business proposal, we realized that AECOM, HNTB, WSP, that happens to be our main competitors, could also be our major ally. And this is where our customer segmentation pivoting comes into place, because we realized that our initial focus was being primarily placed on public infrastructure agencies like the DOTs. However, DOTs, transportation authorities, WAMATA, and even some of these owners have long procurement cycle, and they have very strict pre-qualification requirements. So some of them will require your company to have been working for like the past 10 years for you to be able to get a direct contract with them. So going in as a prime consultant might be challenging initially, especially for new consulting firms like Nicam. So to address this, Nicam plan to expand our target customers to include engineering consulting firms. So instead of seeing AECOM, HNTB, and the likes as our competitor, we could also see them as an ally, whereby we could go into a project consulting contract together as a joint venture. So we could have a JV or we could have a tri-venture, depending on the number of companies that are going into this. So ultimately, we can expand that and have them as an ally. So we could have engineering consulting firm as part of our clientele to ensure that we provide construction management services to all these DOTs and transportation authorities and individual client as needed. So why this change, like I mentioned earlier, is that public agencies have long procurement cycle and they have strict pre-qualification requirements. And for a new firm, it is sometimes challenging to get these contracts. So how this pivoting might improve Nicam Venture is that we are going to have a client base or client acquisition rate that is going to be faster through partnership like JV and Tri-Venture rather than applying as a prime consultant on our own. So that lowers the barrier entry to infrastructure program. Also, we can also look into expanded revenue opportunities that is beyond direct agency contracts. So apart from us working with all these AECOM to provide services to their clients, we could also explore other opportunities like, looking at their own internal design projects and providing scheduling services for them as a third party. So at the end of the day, by pivoting, we are going to be building credibility, we are going to be building project experience, we are going to be expanding our portfolio through repeated engagement opportunities within the project delivery team. So looking at what we've been doing so far and where we are at this point in time. So far, our progress today has been to establish, gather experience. We have our team members, which I'm going to be speaking about in a minute, but we've grounded ourselves in deep experience managing infrastructure projects. So we've gathered enough baseline for us to be able to actually address the need of the clients. We've also defined the services that we're going to be offering, which is risk analysis, schedule analysis, and we've also identified our main goal. We've also developed a validated business proposal. We've looked at the numbers and we've validated market needs. And also we've looked at initial market positioning, looking at how we aim to be different from existing consulting firm in the project control industry. So in the next 12 to 24 months, in the next 1 year, we aim to secure our initial clients, engage with DOTs and other infrastructure agency. We also aim to generate recurring revenue by building on retainer relationship, establishing those relationships and building on them. We also aim to expand our regional presence. We aim to plan from the state of Maryland and grow into neighboring states of Delaware, Virginia, DC, and move to the entire West Coast and the East Coast as well. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we also plan to have a recurring revenue platform that is going to be on a subscription basis. So organizations can come and subscribe for our services for like 3 months, 6 months. And of course, the longer they subscribe, the more discounts they're gonna get. And at the end of the day, we aim to establish ourselves as an industry trusted leader in project schedule development and intelligence of in the area of identifying risk and analyzing risk and proactively addressing issues before they materialize. So having touched on what we've done so far, and the amount of money that we need is also very important to get this company started. Me, myself, as a founder and my team, we've raised about $15,000 out of our personal pocket as our initial investment. And that is what we think, that's what we know is going to be sufficient for our total startup capital. We could also look into optional buffer of about $25,000 for unexpected expenses. But for now, the $15,000 that we have is sufficient to get the company started. And we aim to use this money as business startup and licensing. We aim to use that. We aim to use 6,000 out of the 15,000 for that. And those licensing are going to include things like registering for Primavera P6, any form of insurance that is needed, business registration, and the likes. Then we also plan to use $4,000 for marketing on social media platforms like Facebook. We plan to go to conferences. like the American Society of Civil Engineering Conference. We're also looking at the American AAC conference, where project control is very, very heavily discussed and advertising in those areas. And we also plan to use another $3,000 for other Oracle softwares and project control tools that we might need. Then, of course, $2,000 for any working capital, transportation, operational buffer that might come into play. So this is our goal as regards money, starting up and achieving these milestones. So having said this, let's look at the numbers. Let's talk about how Nicam is planning to generate money. So on an average, each consulting project generates about $50,000 in revenue. So for each project, we expect about $50,000 for project controls, project scheduling, risk management, and the likes. So out of this $50,000 in revenue, we expect that $5,000 is going to be variable cost. So things that might not, based on the scope of the project, it might be higher than that, it might be lower than that. Then we also have an estimate of fixed costs per year for all these expenses, accommodation, infrastructures, and the likes, that comes down to $18,000. So this results in a margin, contribution margin of $45,000 per project. So if you do the difference between the consulting revenue and the variable cost, we have about $45,000 contribution margin a year. So with that, we estimate that an annual fixed cost of $18,000, like I mentioned earlier. So if we have an annual fixed cost of $18,000 and we're expecting $45,000, so that means with our first project, just one project, we should be able to break even. So we should be able to break even between the first year, with our break-even revenue being about $50,000. So with an initial $15,000 investment, and we estimating, that we should be getting about 8 projects in a year, our yearly revenue comes down to $400,000. So $400,000 is what we expect to generate in revenue in a year. So, and that means we're expecting $50,000 per project. So from this, what is our cash flow expected to look like in the next 10 years? So looking at the graph that I just showed you right here, you can see that in year one, we expect a revenue of about $40,000, $400,000. And within the next 10 years, we expect to be looking at about $943,000, close to $1 million. So our total projected revenue in the next 10 years is going to be $9.43. So let's talk about the team that is behind Nicam. The team is, of course, myself, the founder and the CEO, and the principal of Nicam Consulting. I bring over 12 years experience managing schedule for large infrastructure projects, including working for the Maryland Transportation Authority. I hold several licenses. I'm a licensed professional engineer with multiple project control certifications, including the CCM, the PSP, the PMP, PMISP, and the likes. My expertise focuses on Primavera P6 scheduling, critical path analysis, schedule risk mitigation, and delay analysis. At Nicam, I will be leading independent schedule validation and risk intelligence services, while also driving strategy and client delivery. Also on the team is Ngutane Ayatim. Ngutane Ayatim is going to be serving as is a co-founder and our director of strategy and operation at Nicam Consulting. She brings over 10 years of experience in infrastructure program management and consulting. Her expertise include infrastructure delivery strategy, operational scaling, and client management. She has experience working with public agency, transportation authorities, and engineering consulting firm. At Nicam, she's going to be leading our business strategy, our client acquisition, partnership, and operational scaling. So together, our leadership team combines deep technical project control expertise with strong infrastructure strategy and business development experience. So take control of your project. Don't let your project control you. Feel free to contact us today on our email, nicam@nicamconsulting.com. Also, feel free to visit our website, abbasokiola.wixsite.com. Thank you all for coming, and I look forward to providing our services to you.